you agree that former President Buhari, rather than addressing security, but promoted insecurity by looking the other way for the better part?
Thank you so much, gentlemen. I would say I agree with the opinion that General Buhari in the last 8 years or thereabouts did virtually nothing, and I mean virtually nothing, in our fight against terrorism. If anything, he promoted and enhanced our hardship as far as the fight against terrorism was concerned. It's unfortunate that we are talking about our number one citizen as at then, within the period of the last 8 years, a period which I refer to that Nigeria had no political leader. We saw all the lines of actions taken by the, political strategic level of decision making. We saw all the lines of action taken even from the presidency. We saw how ministers who had business or things to do with terrorists were made to remain in their positions as ministers. One was even in charge of our entire national data. We could go on and on and on. We allowed undue sentiments right from the presidency to be visited in our alleged purported plan or action against terrorism. You could read religion, you could read tribalism, you could read ethnicity, and so on. It's unfortunate. And at the subnational level, we had governors, especially up north where I come from, under that administration, that had all sorts of romance and unholy relationship with terrorism, degenerating to a situation where some of them were even talking of amnesty. It was shocking to some of us. Amnesty for who? You tell me they are repentant terrorists. Repentant from what? We are soldiers. Our duty is not to come here and grant repentance. Our duty is to hasten your appointment with God to heaven or hell, where he will grant you penance. So, for us to be bringing large number of men from the forest who hitherto were armed and taking on fellow Nigerians, then on the appearance of soldiers, they drop their weapon and you are compelled as a professional to take them PWs and you bring them back to us and say they are repentant what? And then you give their godfathers sitting in government houses to begin to talk about amnesty and even referring us to how amnesty was granted to some chaps way back in the under what was his name? Yeah, President Yaradua in the creeks. It's unfortunate. So now we have a new administration in place. In the last 6 or 7 months, I have not seen a change, so to speak, from what has been happening in the last 8 years. We will hope that the president now is not listening to some ill advice coming in from some elements or people who have sympathy with the last administration to him as to how to fight terrorism. We have an ample opportunity now to change the guard in how we fight terrorism. We should not. I appeal to my colleagues in the military. I understand very much what the rules of international law of war says concerning PWs and so on. I must tell you, gentlemen, if we've got to fight this war and come out of it unscathed and make sure that we don't eventually leave this war for our grandchildren to fight continually because of our attitude, then we've got to face this war and face it with all the brute it calls for. Face it with all the seriousness it calls for.
Absolutely.
And not to start heaping PWs here and there. The more PWs we gather, the more we are heaping up a reserve force for belligerents who tomorrow will face our children. The situation is now, we have to start taking some very drastic actions. We have to start taking some very drastic actions. Serious nations all over the world are taking drastic actions in resolving their problems and their issues, especially when it borders on security. See what Israel is doing. Even when the whole world is condemning them, they don't give it down because their national interest comes first. Here, I don't even know whether we have a national interest because the way we just play with ourselves is unfortunate. We must sit down, do a serious rejig again, do a serious review of the entire architecture, decentralize our entire defense arrangement in such a way that states will have some level of authority. Not a situation where I learned the 8 governors are about coming together to see what they can do about. There is nothing they can do if eventually the commissioners in those states, commissioners of police in those states, will still have to turn to their IG, who will still have to turn to Mr. President. So you lack the independence, the latitude of action. You lack it. You just boil down to rhetoric, and at the end of the day, our usual style, it ends there. And the whole talk will bring some money, which end up in people's pocket. And that's all. That's Nigeria for you. We are never serious in addressing our problem. I just hope this time around, with the high casualty of death we are seeing in Plateau and so on, it will make us want to stop once in a while.